All right, hey my friends. And so today I want to talk about really a more heart-to-heart connection and talk that I would have more with like a one-on-one client. And it's really this idea of like, what if fear is really just something that's going on in your mind, so to speak? Like, what if it really isn't quote unquote real outside of that and the implications of that? And I want to really just kind of dive into this like I would if I was working with someone one-on-one. So before we dive into this, real quick, if you don't know me, my name is Matt Codde. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds. And if you're looking for help with OCD, anxiety, and stress-related disorders, I have a guide that we just finished and finalized, and it's free on our site to download, along with our free newsletter. So please make sure to get access to that, as I think you'll find it really helpful. I have a link down in the notes, or you can head over to restoredminds.com. So what I wanted to do is today I wanted to just really have this conversation, and it got inspired from the show Better Call Saul. And Better Call Saul was a spinoff of Breaking Bad, and in it there's this character Chuck McGill, and he has what everyone perceives as this problem with electricity or allergy, and it eventually gets revealed that it's just essentially just a fear, right? And he it seems like he had like a panic attack or some kind of situation where he had some kind of bodily experience and he perceived that the electricity was causing it. But at the end of the day, he ends up talking with this therapist or doctor, and he has this kind of realization eventually that he's just like, what if this is all just something in my head, right? And it's not like actually real. And he has this like profound awakening moment where he's like, what if this is all in my head? And if that's true, like, what have I done? Referencing the life, that he had in the life that he currently lives. And so whether it was losing his relationship and, career, and, ultimately he ended up becoming agoraphobic and housebound, right, in the show. And then he goes through a like breaking free process, where he starts challenging it. And so the point that I wanted to really stress, and this is a conversation that I'll have sometimes with someone when I'm working with them one-on-one, is let's look at the implication, right? Because fear likes to show us one side of the coin, right? It likes to show us the possibility of like, what if this terrible thing happens, right? What if I get this terrible disease? What if, I get, this happened, it's like fill in the blank with your theme, right? It doesn't even really matter what the theme is. What if I become some crazy person that does something terrible? What if I do this? What if this? What if this? What if this? What if this? Right? And it likes to show us that. And then we go and try to protect ourselves from that event, right? More often than not, everything our mind has ever said has never actually happened. And what we rarely ever look at is the flip side of the coin, right? We rarely ever look at this. And fear would never get us to look at this, because then we would have to potentially confront the idea that maybe fear isn't serving us in the highest way that we think it is. And that maybe it's actually not a good force to live from in life. And that maybe it is really secretly controlling us. And the question we never look at is simply, what if this isn't real? Like, what if I pursue trying to prevent myself from, quote unquote, getting this sickness, or, stopping this intrusive thought, or this, or, whatever it is. And what if that is not actually going to happen? And what am I trading to get that? To protect myself from that thing that's not going to happen? What if this is just fear? Stated another way, maybe that's the best way to state it. What if this really is just fear? It's just an emotion that I'm projecting onto an idea. What if that's the simplest answer, and what if it's the correct answer? What does that mean? And for a lot of us, what that means is we are trading away the most valuable thing I have, which is time. My attention, my energy, my time, into something that is actually not of any substance. And for me, I had this realization at some point in my journey where I was like, I've given this fear, this idea that this possible thing that could happen, I've given this years of my life. years of my life that I will never get back. And we are so afraid of the thing itself that we never consider the flip side of the coin of investing our energy into something that may not even be real. And when you actually start looking at this other side of the coin, it's a lot more scary to invest our time and energy into something that potentially was never even going to happen, or most likely will never actually happen, because we take our time and energy away from investing in things that we really want to do with our life. And I thought Chuck McGill, they painted such an amazing picture in that show, right? Where he's sitting there and has this realization, intuitively, internally, right? Where it was when he sat there, he's and he's explaining it so well. If you haven't seen the show, I recommend it, because he's explaining it to the doctor. He's like, look, it's when I have these thoughts and these feelings, it's as real as this chair in the room, right? But what if it's actually not? This is just my perception. What if this is just my perception? It's not actually real. And if that's true, what have I done? And I remember having that same moment, and this is not a moment to make you feel negatively. It's more just looking at what's at stake and looking at the realism of what's actually at stake here, which is ultimately the way that you're going to live your life, right? The relationships you're going to have, what you're going to pursue, what you're not going to pursue, opportunities that you're going to say yes to or no to based off fear, right? Possibilities that you close off, relationships you close off, things that you say no to just because it's, again, fear. And fear ultimately wants to stay in the driver's seat. And when fear stays in the driver's seat, the issue is that what it ends up costing you is time. And it ends up costing you the most valuable thing that you have. And so when you convince yourself that you don't have time to address your fear, it's one of the most ironic statements, because that's the only thing that you're giving to it. The only reason you don't have time to address fear is because you're giving so much of your time to it to begin with. And it's not like it's going to free up time for you to then address it, right? You have to literally cut out the time that you're giving to it to make sure that you can confront it and ultimately not allow it to rule and run the show. So I thought about this because this is more just a talk that I, wanted to share, because it's one of those things that, while it might be painful sometimes to look at this, it's by confronting this reality that a lot of times we're able to actually make the turn and that turning point on the journey that actually allows someone to break free from this. And so, I just wanted to share that story. And again, I hope it really does help you. I hope it gets you at least sitting there and thinking within yourself and asking yourself, how much time have I given to this, and how much time do I want to keep giving to this, if any? And realizing you ultimately are the one that gets to decide that. And I just wanted to share that today. So with that, wishing you all a great week and a great day. Look forward to seeing you soon. Hey there. Thanks so much for watching that episode. If you found it helpful, we have some links to some other episodes that we think you might like as well. And if you're looking for help on your journey to recovery from fear, stress, and anxiety, either check out the links in the notes or head over to restoredminds.com. Thank you, and talk to you soon.